What is up, Spurs Nation? Thank you for tuning in to the first ever Order on the Court mailbag edition, where you get your voice heard from a group of people who know their stuff about the Spurs. First on our panel today is Destin. You might know him from YouTube, from Instagram, Spurs Wave on Instagram, Clan the Spurs Fan on YouTube. Destin, what's up, man?
What's good, man? What's good? I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man. It's good. Let's get this thing going. We also have Harrison representing the voices at Spurs Fan Talk, the Facebook page. If you're not subscribed to that page, you need to go get your voice heard. What is up, Harrison?
Yeah, let's go, man. Subscribe to all of us, though.
Absolutely. All of us, right? Spurs Nation represent together. And last but not least, we have Matty from Spurs Blog on the show. What is up, Matt?
What's up, man?
Okay, how this show is going to work. We each pulled out a few questions of our own from our individual platforms, from our own mailbags, if you will, to be discussed here today, right now, for you, for Spurs Nation. So I will lead us off. Bucking Spurs, that's where you guys know me from. We have a question today. Are our young guys ready for post Demar DeRozan and post LaMarcus Aldridge? And this question is brought to you by Mr. Simmons Jr. on Instagram. All right. So first, let me just throw it to you, Matt. Matt, what are your thoughts about our young guys? Are they able to step up, be playoff competitive if our two all-stars, former all-stars, are gone?
Yeah, this is something Spurs fans have been wanting to see a lot this year, and I think we'll see a lot more of next year, regardless of where DeMar and LaMarcus are in regards to our team. I think they have a great opportunity to step up. I think they will step up to the challenge. I'm excited for Lonnie's potential. I'm excited for DeJounte and Derek, obviously in the backcourt. I'm also very excited for Keldon and Luka and even Quindary. So the rookie trio from this year, I think, will have a big opportunity to step up. Who's going to step up and how much remains to be seen. I don't think they're really capable of carrying a team to the playoffs just yet. But, if you want to kind of build around them, then you kind of need to go through those growing pains at first. So I think, just letting them step up to the challenge and taking on the bigger roles and just seeing how they'll grow next year is going to be a big stepping point for this franchise.
Yeah, and seeing players step up and take the challenge is probably one of the more exciting things that we haven't been able to see for a long time, because we've always just been so veteran heavy big three. Also, we don't really have a lot of youth, so it's exciting for us. Harrison, what do you think on our young guys being ready to take over post DeMar and LaMarcus?
Well, I'm kind of in a similar boat as Matt. We saw Murray to an extent at the beginning of the season. Of course, it wasn't really looked at because people were so intent on scrutinizing DeRozan and his slow start to the season. But Murray was averaging about 18, 8, and 6 to start the year. I mean, that's all-star numbers right there. So he's proven he can be effective when he's the guy facilitating. He's the guy running through the offense. We've seen what Derek White can do when the other all-stars aren't really producing at the highest level they can. Last season, I mean, he put up, 40 and 30-some in the playoffs. I mean, and that's as essentially a rookie. He didn't play the year before much. But to Matt's point, I don't think they're quite at the carrying level yet, but I do think they could be a playoff team. I don't think we need to be carried so much. If you look at 2014, yeah, we did have the big three, but you had Tony. I guess he was an MVP candidate a few years prior, still a very good player, but not an all-star caliber. Manu getting old, not all-star caliber still. Duncan, very good still. And then you have a really young Kawhi Leonard who's a shell of what he is now. So we got through that championship by playing as a team, playing together. And I think if they were to bring in, one or two vets free agent-wise just to kind of mentor the young guys along with Patty Mills, I do think they're pretty capable of making at least a run until the young guys are ready to carry all that load.
Yeah, absolutely. And are these guys going to be able to get that type of reps in order to make that growth with these two guys here is like the biggest question I think that all of us have in our minds. So Destin, to round out this question, what is your thoughts on our young Bucks? They ready?
I mean, as far as are they ready? I mean, I don't even think LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan are really ready to do anything. And, they're veterans. I mean, as far as what they're ready to do, if you're saying lead us to the playoffs, I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge and DeRozan barely done that. So are they ready? I would much rather put my faith into like Lonnie Walker, because he obviously has a clutch gene, and Keldon Johnson, which I think that he plays like a veteran at times. He's still, of course, extremely young, but he plays like a veteran. And then as far as Derek White, we know what Derek White can do. So, and we know that he plays like a veteran already. DeJounte Murray, I also think DeJounte Murray, by next season, he'll be on another level. So as far as are they ready, I think they're more ready than anything else we've had the last couple seasons. I mean, we have not looked that great at all. And the last time that we did look great was when we had Kawhi. And when he went down, we got swept. You know, no one really I mean, especially LaMarcus Aldridge, he didn't step up at that point. So as far as, you know, are they ready without these two guys? I mean, my question would be like, what did we really have before that? So, yeah, sure. I guess they're ready. So
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Okay, well, I think that there's something that we need to keep in mind here, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, if we do make that transition to the younger players, we're gonna start seeing a very. I would expect that we would start seeing a very different style of basketball. I don't see us playing this inside out, mid range assassin style of play with our young guys if they're ready. When they are ready, I see a lot more 2014 move, drive, kick, pass, you know, penetrate and dish. You know, good to great. When is the last time we saw good to great in San Antonio? It's been a little while. But here's the question I want to ask you guys. And be honest. Is a season of growing pains with the young group, do you think that's going to be harder, just as hard as this season, or easier to endure as a Spurs fan than what we had to this year? Harrison, we'll throw it to you first.
It's tough because I can tell you right off from a lot of the stuff we've seen on our page, nobody was losing in any capacity. I mean, when we had our 67 win season, we only lost 15 games, and people were still mad about those. But I'm going to go ahead and say a tad easier, because I think what's bugged people the most this season is we're losing, and they're wondering, you know, where does it go from here? What happens? Are we going to stick with the same formula? Are we going to change it? But doing that, they can see a change that we're at least trying to make. They can see young guys progress throughout the season. We bring up Keldon Johnson. I think it's easiest to watch coach ball to look at Kentucky. There are a lot of freshmen that go to that program, and at the start of the year, they struggle. I mean, 2 years ago, they got absolutely annihilated by Duke in their first game. But by the end of the year, they're a championship contender. And I think San Antonio, maybe not as fast as Kentucky does it, but I do think if they get the young guys in there learning from actual NBA experience, people will notice measured improvement by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And looking back at that season, it won't be so tough as it was with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Matty, do you think a young Buck-led Spurs team can win 26 games? Oh, I think you're. Let me see. I think you're muted really quick. There you go.
We good?
Yeah, we good.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, I definitely think they're very capable of winning 26 games, and it's kind of just like Harrison said, and a lot of Spurs fans have, you know, you see on social media after like every loss, it's like, why are we giving, you know, 15 plus 20 plus minutes to these veterans that have no, you know, place on this team in the future, you know, like Marco Bellinelli and Rudy Gay, then Marcus Aldridge getting, you know, 30 plus minutes, and then we got guys like Luka, Keldon, Lonnie, and then, you know, even DeJounte and Derek only getting like 20 minutes just rotting on the bench. I mean, it makes no sense. Like, if we're going to lose, you know, at least we can like lose with a purpose and get reps and minutes to the young guys. You know, it's like Andy from the Office, and he's like, you know, I think I'm going to fail upwards today. It's kind of like it's kind of the same thing, you know, same idea. And so, you know, every time we lost a game, and Demar had like 20 something, LaMarcus had 20 something in 30 plus minutes, it just felt like a wasted game. It just felt like it was a complete waste of time. Like, we didn't gain anything out of it. So, you know, if you know, we do give the reins to the young Bucks next year, and they do kind of take up that leadership role, and we probably will lose a lot of games like this year. You know, will it be easier for Spurs fans? I think, you know, it won't be as fun, but I think it will be definitely easier on us saying kind of like, you know, this is, this is what we wanted. We wanted the young guys to take the wheel, and we wanted them to lead this team. So it's just kind of a part of the process. And, if that's what fans truly want, then, I hope they're ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Simon Jr., I think that's the name of the guy who posted this comment. Just want to correct that really quick. Mr. Simon Jr., you've been a diehard since day one for Bucking Spurs. We appreciate you joining our mailbag and submitting your question. Spurs Nation, we always do this for you. So let's go ahead and move on to the next question. We're going to do a question here from Spurs Fan Blog. That's from Camo Spurs Fan. And the question is, where do you rank Tim Duncan all time? I thought this was appropriate, he just got inducted to the Hall of Fame. We're talking about all-time level talent. And, so Destin, I want to throw this one to you first. Where does Tim Duncan rank on your all-time?
All-time greatest players?
Yeah, I think that's what the question is asking you.
Yeah, he's always, in my opinion, always been third. I always had Michael Jordan and then Kobe and then Tim Duncan. But then again, that's based on my experience. I know other people might say, Kareem or something like that, but just seeing what Tim Duncan brought to the Spurs, just how we were always a winning franchise technically, but when he came in, he just transformed the entire, scope of what we will become or what we're expecting from players on out, and he's one of those guys where I think that it takes a lot for somebody to be as great as he was and then have so much of a little ego. Because if it wasn't for Tim Duncan, we wouldn't have the type of talent or people coming to San Antonio and just going with the system and believing in it. It's been all him. And even in the future, if we're talking about like who's going to be the future coach, I mean, it will probably be Tim Duncan, and him having that legendary status will really help us as far as our, as far as the young guys coming in. So I just think Tim Duncan has helped affect so much in the NBA. And to be that great with such little ego, I think that's tremendous. His accolades speak for itself. So in my opinion, he's third on my list.
Third. I like it. I like that. I'm not going to argue with that one. Matty, this is your question, comes from your blog. He's in a league of his own, but where do you put him all time?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, obviously, with a lot of what Destin said. When you talk about all-time greats, it's a pretty subjective opinion based on what your metrics are. Are you using points, accolades, titles, longevity, all that stuff. And, I think Timmy's one of those guys that just checks every box. And, to continue on the point of, the ego, the lack of, I mean, how many of the superstars, where people talk about, top 10, top 20 of all time that didn't have an ego? I mean, you can't. There's nobody else on there on that top 10 list, no matter who is on there that, didn't have an ego. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have been able to have sustained success for 2 decades. And if you really think about it, I mean, in the modern era of basketball, we've never seen anything like it. We've never seen anything like it. The pay cuts, accepting that, he wasn't the offensive firepower he was in the early 2000s, and that allowed us, to hand the reins to guys like Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green in his latter years that really, gave us that championship in 2014. And, just speaking as a basketball player myself, I've had the luxury of being on some really good teams. And when your best player is, the most humble and the most willing to take a punch from the coach, I mean, you're not going to talk back to the coach. If your best player, the franchise player, is, willing to take that, a face burger in the sideline of the middle of a nationally televised game, playoff game, finals game, whatever. I mean, you sure as heck aren't talking back to any coach or any player. I mean, it's not a stat you can measure either. So, where I would put him, again, you get into subjective, opinions with that, but I definitely think he's a top 5 player. I'd put him around 3 or 4 too.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Harrison, we got you. Man, our I'm sure all of us here, our love runs deep. Like, it runs deep for Tim Duncan because of everything you guys just said. He's the rock. He's the guy. He's the reason why we go Spurs go, so often versus what we did this year, right? And Harrison, I just want to ask you, not only where, does he rank on your all-time, but, like with him being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I mean, I'm sure that means something to all of us. But why don't you tell us a little bit about where he ranks all-time and kind of what that meant for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with everybody else. I don't know if I can put a specific number on it, just because I feel like the 3 to 5 spots are so interchangeable, just for different reasons. But he's in there. He's top 5. I think what sells me on it, and I don't remember who it was, but it was an ESPN writer tweeted out today that if Tim Duncan had had the exact same career that he had in San Antonio in a big market like New York, he would unquestionably be a top 3 player of all time. And to me, that heightens his legacy more for me because he did it in a small market. Like we talked about, he took pay cuts. He wasn't loud and blabbing about his accomplishments. He didn't have media lauding him all the time. And the Spurs are now in the media because everyone's wondering, is their playoff streak going to end? Why do they stink so bad? That's because of him.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so good because of him. I mean, he didn't see a season with fewer than 50 wins. He didn't miss the playoffs once. I mean, 5-time champion. You have to talk about Kobe's stretch of dominance and Shaq from 2000 to 2003. Well, yeah, he was dominant. Duncan won 2 MVP awards in that stretch, though. So, I mean, he was still pretty dominant, too. He just didn't have that beta dog to him as Robinson was aging. So, yeah, definitely top 5, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would agree with you guys. Top 5, hands down. Him getting into the Hall of Fame, I mean, it was obvious, right? I mean, all those guys, him, KG, Kobe, it's all obvious. But, I mean, for us, like you said, he stayed with us for 20 some odd years. He won a championship in 3 different decades in 99, in the 90s, the 2000s, and 2010s. That's unheard of. It's unrealistic. If someone told you, hey, someone's going to win a championship in 3 different decades in the future, you say, yeah, right, and be dominant the whole time. It's just insane. Shout out to Big Timmy, for everything he's done for us in San Antonio, and for everything he's done for us this season on the bench as a coach. So let's go ahead and move on to the next question. All right, so the next question that we're going to go to comes from the San Antonio Spurs Talk Facebook page. And the question is, can the Spurs get Christian Wood? Christian Wood, I have to admit, not familiar on who Christian Wood is, but this offseason is crucial. This draft is crucial. What free agent moves we do in this offseason are huge. Harrison, why don't you give us a lowdown on Christian Wood?
Yeah, so Christian Wood, I believe he's a 4-year vet at this point. He's bounced around between a couple of teams. The Sixers had him. The Bucks had him. The Pelicans had him earlier this year and decided to make room for Zion, getting rid of him. Essentially, the Pistons picked him up when he was waived by the Bucks. He's averaging about 10 points, 6 rebounds this year. But since the Pistons traded Andre Drummond to the Cavs, he's just gone off. It's night in, night out, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple of blocks in there. He's a 6'10" guy with mobility. He's the dream in the modern league. Not to mention he hits 40% of his threes. So he's on a bargain deal right now at $3 million. The Spurs can get him, but it's going to come at a cost of some other players just with market value. The one thing that could happen is DeRozan could feasibly opt out of his player option. And then there's $27 million in cap space to play with. I think his deal is probably going to be somewhere at a minimum $10 million a year range, probably a max at 15. So if you could offer him about 11 to 12, just kind of secure that. I think they could get away with it. The problem there is you're looking at possibly not being able to offer Jakob Poeltl. You're going to have to get rid of Bellinelli, which I think a lot of people are fine with. You're looking at not being able to qualify offer Bryn Forbes, and it's going to really restrict you with the rest of your free agents should DeRozan opt in. But it is feasible, and he would be a great fit.
All right, awesome. That's a good intro on a little bit of Christian Wood. Matty, what's your take on Christian Wood?
Yeah, I mean, Harrison put everything perfectly right there as far as, how feasible it is and how realistic it is, with the cap space and DeMar situation. Just to talk about Christian Wood a little more in detail, though. So I live right outside Milwaukee. I got a lot of friends here in Wisconsin who are huge Bucks fans, and he was on their G League team last year, and he was just a beast. I personally didn't watch him. Like, I don't watch the Bucks G League team, but my friends do. And when they got rid of him, they were furious. They wanted him on the Bucks last year. They wanted the Bucks to keep him and sign him. This isn't to say he's going to turn into a Tim Duncan legendary player, but I agree with Harrison. $3 million a year is an absolute steal for that guy. So he's gonna get a big payday this year, I believe, whoever he signs with. So like you said, he can do it all. He can score at the rim, he can shoot the three, he can block, he can defend the paint, he can do it all. Just a perfect modern day big. So if the Spurs can get him, I'd be elated, but it's going to depend on obviously what DeMar does, and whether or not he opts in or out is really going to make a big impact on our free agency this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I kind of like the idea of, we do that all the time. We find talent that's kind of hidden, and we turn it into what it needs to be for us to be successful. And I think, Christian Wood can be that type of guy. To be honest, I haven't seen a lot of film on Christian Wood, so I can't give you too much of an in-depth analysis on him. Destin, you know anything about Christian Wood?
I do not, but based on what you guys said, he sounds amazing. So I'm down for it. It looks like we're kind of going in a direction where we're trying to get or develop, power forwards or those skillful bigs. So if you guys are saying that he's skillful and he can shoot outside shots and attack the paint and aggressive, I mean, I'm all for it, especially if we can get him for a good price. So yeah, I'm down for it.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, I'll throw in another young buck with Drew Ebanks and Chimezi and Jakob. Can we have them all there at the same time? I have no idea. But we're going to go ahead and keep this one moving. Our next question comes from Spurs Wave on Instagram. And the question is, what do you think the Spurs need to do this offseason? So, Destin, we'll keep it right here with you. Some of our offseason priorities on our agenda. As soon as that final buzzer goes off on the season, if it ever does go off, we're all waiting on that. What do you think's the number 1, 2, 3 things that the Spurs need to address going into this offseason?
It's so tough. I would say, just me personally, my personal opinion is I would say go after a center at some point, maybe a center or just a big man in general. And you guys mentioning Christian Wood, that's fine with me, because at this point we know LaMarcus Aldridge, is on his way out. Either he finish off his contract and he leaves back to Blazers or however they do it. But we know that he's on his way out. So I would say that would be probably the number 1 priority, because it was blatantly obvious this season that it's kind of Jakob or bust as far as our centers. I mean, as soon as he got out, our season has already been awful, but when he was out, we looked even worse. So my personal opinion would be go after a big if you could. And I don't know if Luka is ready or Chimezi's ready. I'm not sure about all that, but I would say go after a big.
Going after a big and free agent. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think when LaMarcus went down, we're all kind of like yes, all right, cool, man. Let's unleash Jakob. You know what I mean? Let's see what he's done, how he's developed. Because I think, to give credit to Jakob, I think he developed a hell of a lot over the last offseason. And I think that he didn't get the chance to show us how much he did develop. So I was really excited. And then when he went down, we were small. We're Trey Lyles, where Drew Ebanks can't come in for a couple spot games here and there. And it hurt us defensively. And I think that's what you were talking about, Destin. Defensively, we went down the hole when our bigs stopped defending the rim. So, Harrison, I'll throw it to you next. This offseason priorities. There's plenty. That's no doubt. But if you're the GM, what's number 1 on your agenda?
Number 1 is let Marco Bellinelli walk. I'm going to throw that out there. I love Marco. I do still think he has a place in this league. I just think this team needs to revamp the direction it goes. I'll be a bit different here. One thing that intrigues me is Golden State has a $17.7 million trade exception from getting rid of Andre Iguodala. So essentially they can trade for somebody and give them nothing in return. Possibly a pick, though. So I think if we get to the draft, we got to see where Golden State picks. If not, I wouldn't mind sending Rudy Gay over to them. He's friends with the Warriors guys. He makes $14 million. Send him over there. They could use somebody like him. Give us a second-round pick or something, and that frees up a spot. And like Destin was saying, go after a big. I'll expound upon that. I think they need to go after, like we talked about Christian Wood, but multifaceted players. So, guys who can shoot, drive, pass, score, kind of like we had on that 2014 team. Because as it is, I say trade Rudy. I love the guy, but his outside game falters at times. He's a mid-range slasher player, not the greatest distributor. We have too many one-trick ponies on this team.
Yeah.
Same with Marco. And I'll get into it later, but I think make an offer to Forbes on a team-friendly deal. We have another question about that I'll expound upon my reasoning. But and yeah, I think the big thing is just multi-talented, multi-ability players that can space the floor, hit shots over contested defensive contests just in case, the defense falters. Guys who are okay not standing out and taking a star role, but working for the better of the team. So, yeah, we're in concurrence there.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting. I think Rudy Gay is definitely like one of the pieces on the board for us to worry about this offseason. And like you said, I loved Rudy Gay. I was really hyped on Rudy. I was very happy for Rudy Gay last year when we gave him that contract because he had just balled out. Like, he had just had a great season. But then the Spurs did what they did with Pau Gasol and projected your 2 years later, the next 2 years of your payroll based on what you did and not what you're going to do for us in the future. And I love Rudy, but I thought about this a lot this season. You guys tell me if I'm wrong. I thought that isn't Rudy Gay just Carmelo without the ego?
A little bit, a little less of the shot too.
Like, they get the same? Doesn't Rudy Gay get the same looks? I guess that's the way I should put it. He gets the same looks that Carmelo gets when he's on the floor, but Carmelo needs the status, he needs the starting spot, he needs the touches and all those things, where Rudy Gay just has a similar game that's not really meant for today's NBA. And every time Rudy Gay's on the floor,
because back in Memphis, that's who they kept comparing him to. Oh, he's going to be the next Anthony and carry that scoring load. It's like you said, it just doesn't translate well to 2020.
No, it doesn't. And it hurt us, and it hurt us a lot. Matty, we'll go to you next. Off-season agenda. What's priority number one?
Yeah, I think Harrison hit the nail on the head when he was talking about too many one-trick ponies. I mean, Rob, I was on your podcast last Saturday or whenever it was, and that's exactly what we talked about. We just have too many guys, particularly, on the defensive end, that just don't offer anything. And, I think you see that a lot in, Bryn Forbes, Marco Bellinelli, and, even Patty Mills. Like, I like Patty's veteran presence, obviously, but, looking more specifically at like Marco Bellinelli and Bryn Forbes. I mean, Bryn Forbes, third in the minutes on the team. And yet, if you look at every defensive metrics, he's one of the worst defenders in the league. I mean, the guy can't guard his lunch money from a fifth grader, like I said. So, like I said on your podcast, they need more versatile defenders, guys that can switch anywhere on the perimeter, and I think they have that. With the young guys in the backcourt, I think Lonnie and Keldon can switch in the perimeter. I think DeJounte and Derek have obviously proven themselves as, top-tier perimeter defenders. I think Jakob Poeltl's an excellent defender in the post, so I think he was fourth in the league, actually, in opponents' field goal percentage at the rim. So it was like Giannis, Brook Lopez, Robin Lopez, which is crazy to have three players on the same team for the Bucks. And then Jakob Poeltl was fourth. I think his opponent field goal percentage at the rim was like 45%. So that's insane. But, as far as offseason agenda goes, they need to get back to their, defensive ways and defense being a staple of their team. And, to even go even further, they really need to get back an identity. I think, you look at all the best teams in the league, they have an identity. Yeah, and, talking to any Spurs fan, what's the Spurs identity? Are they, a great offensive team? Are they a great defensive team? Are they shooters? They don't have an identity. They don't have any of that. Last year, even you could argue that they had an offensive identity. They had a top five team offensive efficiency-wise. They had, four guys off the bench shoot 40% or around 40% from three, and Rudy, Marco, Patty Mills, and Davis Bertans. And so, you see a lot of regression from some of those guys this year. We lost Davis, so they really just need to get back to their old ways of having defense being a staple. They need to get more versatile defenders on the perimeter. I think they have decent rim protectors as it is right now. Like Destin said, I wouldn't be mad about going after another center in free agency or the draft or whatever the case may be. So they just need to get back to their identity, and their identity is defense.
Yeah, each topic that you guys threw out right now is absolutely crucial. And I think we're all looking at this question like, okay, besides DeMar, besides, LaMarcus, where else on our team do we need What else on our team do we need to address? And I think y'all hit it on the head. Honestly, I was going to say our free agents. We got to figure out what we're going to do with Jakob. Are we going to bring him back? Are we going to commit to him? And the same thing with Bryn Forbes. Can we, Peter Holt, RC Buford, charm him into taking a team-friendly deal? I hope so. But I feel like priority-wise, it's defense, like you said, and we have those tools already on us. We have Keldon. We have Derek White, DeJounte, some of the probably top defenders on the perimeter in the league already, so young. So bringing back our free agents, deciding what we're going to do with those would be mine. All right, so let's go ahead and go on to the next question.